What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're here for NFL Week 5 picks and predictions. Our season total is 42, 18, and 1 on the season, bringing us to a 70% win rate on the season. So I feel pretty good about that, a little bit better than we did last season so far, so feeling good about that. And I also felt pretty good about last week's picks. So far, we are 8, 5, and 1 on the week. The Monday games have not happened yet. I just like to film these on a Monday. And there's going to be two Monday night games here coming up. But so far we are 8, 5, and 1 last week. And I thought there were some good picks there. I had the Steelers over the Vikings. I had the Chiefs over the Ravens. I even had the Cowboys over the Packers, and they ended up tying that game. So I was pleased with some of my picks there. I like to show the absolute best pickers in the world on the site that I'm using, ESPN Pigskin Pick'em. There's a guy on there right now at 53 and 8 on the season, so absolutely incredible. But without further ado, let's get into our picks here. So the first pick, the Thursday night game, the 49ers at the Rams. Both teams coming into this game at 3 and 1. And I think the NFC West matchups are always kind of tough to pick. But to me, the Rams really do feel like a true Super Bowl contender. If you ask me right now, I would probably say the Rams are the favorite to win the Super Bowl, just in my opinion. Their offense is really stacked, their defense looks fantastic, and obviously they're a very well coached team. Tutu Atwell's looked great. Puka Nacua has looked like one of the better receivers in the league, and you also got Devontae Adams. And then you're looking at the 49ers. They're very banged up again. They lost Nick Bosa for the year. They looked sloppy last week versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. They had a lot of turnovers. Purdy is back, but I still think he's finding his rhythm. And I think it's a tough time to find your rhythm against this Rams defense. They got a lot of dogs out there like Verse, Byron Young, Cam Curl. All really solid players for this Rams defense. So I expect them to win that game in Los Angeles. Give me the Rams. Then you have the Vikings at 2 and 2 going to the Browns at 1 and 3. This game is actually being played in London, and I think there's a big advantage here for the Vikings because obviously last week they played in Ireland, and they're staying in Europe to play against the Browns in London. So I think that that's a big advantage. And you're looking at the Browns. This is going to be their second consecutive road game, and they're not going to be home until October 19th. So I think just looking at it from that perspective, I like the Vikings here. I know the Vikings haven't been great, and I don't really think they're good enough to compete against really good teams. But they kind of look a little bit undisciplined. Their O line hasn't been great. Carson Wentz is serviceable, but also not great. But you're going up against the Browns, and I know their defense has been fantastic. But in the big 2025, you can't have Joe Flacco as your quarterback and expect to win games. I'm curious when the Browns are going to make the move to go on and try out Dylan Gabriel or even Shador Sanders at this point, because I really think they have nothing to lose. I don't know what what they expect with Joe Flacco at the helm. Moving on, we have the Raiders at 1 and 3 at the Colts 3 and 1. And even though the Colts lost last week to the Rams, I was really impressed with their loss. I think that Daniel Jones has continued to look very good. And I'm interested to see Alex Pierce, the Colts star wide receiver. I'm curious to see if he's going to play in this game because they really did miss him last week versus the Rams. And I would expect him to play. So I think that that's going to make a big difference for the Colts. But obviously they're not going up against a very good opponent. The Raiders have not been very good. I think they've been decent, but I just think the quarterback play hasn't been great. And then you're looking at Brock Bowers, who's injured and just not himself right now. But I thought, I've thought Genti has looked pretty good. But you're looking at this Colts team. I think that this home field advantage is going to be really good too for Indy. They haven't been home in 2 weeks, and I think that the crowd in Indianapolis is going to be really fired up to watch this Colts team, who are playing really good football at the minute. So give me the Colts to win that game, obviously. Then you have the Giants at 1 and 3 at the Saints 0 and 4. Jackson Dart really introduced himself to the league last week versus the Chargers. I thought he played really well. I thought he was poised. I thought he was comfortable. And I think that, he gave the Giants a lot of life in that game. So I really like what I saw from him. I want to see him throw the ball more because I thought that he was, a dual threat in that game, and I thought that he was more of a good runner in that game, more so than a passer. But nonetheless, I thought he was good. Scadaboo has been fantastic too. So I think the 2025 draft for the Giants has been, a really good draft for them. Um, and I can't really pick the Saints with any confidence here. But one thing I will say, the Giants, they did play a very physical game last week versus the Chargers. Obviously, Malik Neighbors is out now for the season, so that's a big blow. Jackson Dart even came up limping in that game a few times. And Scadaboo, he ran it a lot. So I think that there's problems there. And I also don't think the Saints are going to go 0-17 this season. So I think that there is a chance for the Saints to win this game at home, but I don't have it in me to pick the Saints. So give me the Giants to win that game, but I think it really could be close. Then you have the Cowboys at 1-2-1 on the season, at the Jets 0-3 at the moment. Both defenses for the Cowboys and the Jets have been really bad this season. But I think it just comes down to the Cowboys offense being a little bit more competent than the Jets. The Jets O-line has not been good. And Fields, to me, doesn't have enough support in terms of receivers or anything. So there's not a lot of science to that game. It's going to be in New York, but give me the Cowboys to win that one. Then you have the Broncos at the Eagles. The Broncos are coming into this game at 1-2 right now, and the Eagles are 4-0. So, the Eagles haven't been perfect. They've looked a little sloppy, especially in the second half versus the Buccaneers. I thought that they played kind of poor, but they keep on finding ways to win, and that's what the great teams do. And I don't think the Eagles are an exception to that. I think the Broncos will be a good challenge, though. The Eagles have played a lot of good teams already. They played the Rams, the Bucks, now the Broncos. I think that's a really, tough schedule. And you're looking at the Broncos. I think this front seven of the Broncos is elite. I think they're going to give Jalen Hurts trouble. And I think if Bo Nix, can play well, can play better than he's played in certain games this season, I think that they do have a chance to win this game. But, once again, give me the Eagles to win that game at home. Then you have the Dolphins at the Panthers. I've gone back and forth with this one, but I think I'm going to go with the Dolphins here just because I think they have more talent, which isn't a great reason. One thing I will say, the Panthers do have a day's rest on the Dolphins, and obviously the Panthers are at home, so I think this is anybody's game. But, the Panthers' defense has been really bad this season. They don't get any pressure, and Bryce Young, to me, just hasn't looked all that great. So for those reasons, give me the Dolphins, but I don't have a lot of confidence in that game. Then you have the Texans at 1-3 going to the Ravens 1-3. And, the Ravens defense has been really bad this season, which has been kind of a surprise because they were supposed to be better on defense this season. So it's kind of a surprise. And for the first time that I've ever seen, John Harbaugh is kind of under a lot of pressure right now. So it's kind of interesting to see that. But luckily, this Ravens team is playing the Texans, who are an interesting team because they obviously can't get anything going on the offense. But defensively, they're probably a top 5 unit in the NFL right now. But give me the Ravens here at home. They're just due for a win. I think they should get the job done. I think they should win this game. So give me the Ravens there. Then you have the Titans at 0-4 at the Cardinals 2-2. I think the Titans are probably the worst coach team in the NFL right now. A lot of people would tell you that. I don't even think Cam Ward is all that bad. I think that he could be a good quarterback in this league in the future. But right now, this Titans coaching staff is not doing him any favors. I just like the Cardinals here. They've had their issues on offense, but their defense has been solid all season long. And this is the Cardinals' second consecutive home game, and they also have 3 days rest on the Titans. So I think that for those reasons, I really love the Cardinals at home, and I think they have a really good home field advantage in Arizona as well. Then we have the Buccaneers at 3-1 going to the Seattle Seahawks 3-1. I think this is probably one of the games of the week. I've gone back and forth with this one as well, but I'm going to ride the Buccaneers here. The Buccaneers, they've kind of been beating themselves a little bit. They played a close game versus the Eagles without Mike Evans last week. And one thing I will say, though, the Seahawks, they do have 3 days rest on the Buccaneers, so that's something to take note of. Obviously, the Seattle home field advantage is something to take note of as well. So it's a really tough matchup here for me. I think this is a true pick 'em, a 50-50 game. But I'm just going to go with the Buccaneers here. It comes down to me trusting the coaching and Baker more for the Bucks. But I think that one could really go either way. The Seahawks have been playing good football. Sam Darnold has been good as well. So, that's a tough one, but give me the Buccaneers there. Then you have the Lions at 3-1 going to the Bengals 2-1. The Lions, they came into the season with a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator. So I think it took them a little bit of time to get hot, but they're still 3-1 on the season. They're still a good team. And I expect them to win this game. Obviously, the Bengals don't have Joe Burrow, and without Joe Burrow, this team is completely different. I really don't think they have a chance, and I don't think they're all that motivated. One thing I will say about the Lions, couple corners, Terrion Arnold and DJ Reed, are banged up for this game, so I think that's a little bit of a concern. But I do like the Lions. I think that they're really starting to get the ball rolling, and I think they're looking like one of the better teams in the league right now. Then we go to the Commanders 2-2 at the Chargers 3-1. The Chargers are my favorite team. And it's been tough. You go 3-0 to start the season against division opponents, but there's been a lot of injuries. You lost already Denzel Perryman, your linebacker, Najee Harris, your running back, Khalil Mack. And then you're looking at the offensive line is probably the worst offensive line in the league now, with injuries to 3 starters, Slater, Alt, and Becton. Hopefully Becton is back for this game, but definitely Slater and Alt are going to not be here for the game. So I think, like I said, this is probably one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL. Luckily, we have Herbert, who I pray doesn't get injured. And also, luckily for the Chargers, this Commanders defense has been kind of their weakness. I think even without Jaden Daniels, Mariota has been serviceable. And I think you even had a chance to win that game last week versus Atlanta, but the defense hasn't really done you any favors. So luckily for the Chargers, that defense hasn't been great this season. I do expect Jaden Daniels to be back for the Commanders. But give me the Chargers to win this one at home. I think it's going to be close. It's really anybody's game too. But I think Jaden Daniels, he's been banged up. It's going to take him a second to get into rhythm. I don't think he has a lot of receiver support. I like Deebo Samuels, but I don't think he's all that. And I just don't think that Jaden Daniels gets a lot of support in general. So give me the Chargers to win that game. Not a lot of science there. There's a lot of injuries for the Chargers that make it complicated to pick. But I'll take the Chargers there to go to 4-1 on the season. Then you have the Patriots 2-2 at the Bills 4-0. The Patriots, they beat the Panthers last week 42-13. I was really impressed with that. They played complementary football on special teams, defense, offense, and it feels like Vrabel is really integrating this team. He's doing a good job. I think it maybe took a couple of weeks to get there, but I think that Vrabel really has this team under control. So I really like the direction the Patriots are going. I think that the Patriots are going to be a very scary, dangerous team moving forward. But right now, I just can't pick against Josh Allen, who's probably, or definitely is the MVP right now. In the league right now. So I just can't pick against the Bills, especially at home. There are things I don't love about the Bills, like the receiving core. I don't think the receiving core is all that great, but I mean, Josh Allen is making it happen, man. He's making it happen, and I can't pick against them, not at home. Then you have the Chiefs 2-2 at the Jaguars 3-1, and the Jaguars defense, they've surprised me. They've been good this season. But I still think Trevor Lawrence and this offense, they need to be better. They got a decent amount of weapons on the offense for Jacksonville as well. So I truly do think they have to be better. Patrick Mahomes, though, I think he's quietly having a pretty darn good year. I don't think a lot of people are talking about that. I think that this is probably the best I've seen Patrick Mahomes play in the last at least 2 seasons. And then you're looking at Worthy coming back for the Chiefs, and that's added an element that they absolutely were missing. So I really like that for the Chiefs. And, I as much as I like the Jaguars defense, I don't quite trust them yet with Trevor Lawrence. I think this is going to be a close game. But just with all the experience that the Chiefs have with winning games, I expect them to win this game. It feels like the Chiefs are kind of getting on a roll. I just can't state that Worthy Worthy coming back. I think that just helps them tremendously. So give me the Chiefs to win that game. Those are my picks for this week. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll be back next week for more predictions videos, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.